Join lifelong Star Wars fans Lauren and Steph as they dive into the world of Star Wars fan fiction, discussing a new fic each month, breaking down the writing style, characters, canon relationship, and more. This is your source for Star Wars fan fiction recommendations. So come on and find out why it's one hell of a fanfic.
Hey y'all, and welcome to One Hell of a Fanfic, where we talk about a new Star Wars fanfic every month. And as usual, I am here with Steph. How's it going, Steph?
I am so hot. Illinois has decided to be 90 degrees today, and I don't know why, but hey, summer's here, I guess. How are you?
Oh God. Well, try not to melt. Yeah, I mean, I'm good. I actually, unlike you, I have not gotten any fresh air today at all. I've been inside the entire day, which is like also bad in a different way. So maybe after this, I'm gonna have to go outside.
Touch grass, breathe
Yeah.
air. Yeah.
Exactly. This month, we read Magic Blankets by Lady Lombax, which, if last month, if your teeth were hurting from how sweet that fanfic was, you better buckle up and get ready because this one is even sweeter.
Oh, yeah. I loved it. So this fic was made back in 2018. It's only 3,000 words. You can knock this out really quick. And I say definitely do it. There's no spice to it. It's canon divergent tropes.
Fix it as usual. I feel like lately we've been doing a lot of fix-its, and this is just another one, but another great one.
Was there any found family?
I mean, yeah, but come on, I'm just getting repetitive at this point. But yes, there was found family, of course, because anytime we have clones, which there are clones in this one, you're going to have found family.
I always try to find some information more about the fic or the author, and this fic actually has a podfic to it and a spin-off where they take one of the obscure characters from like the very, very end of the fic and they continue the story.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think I'm actually going to go read it.
Yeah. I mean, if it's anything like this one, I bet it's great. So, the author's summary, this is the blurb that the author included at the beginning of the fic, which goes, C-3PO accidentally saves the galaxy by teaching a young Anakin Skywalker how to crochet. Or in which the power of love and crafts solves a lot of problems, and the Jedi Crush is about 2 inches away from kidnapping Anakin at any given moment. So why do you think people should read this?
Because it's so cute. It has such a different twist. We've been finding them, these different twists on a fix-it. And oh my goodness, it's adorable.
Yeah, I mean, adorable. Can't say that enough. Also, if you love crafts, there's a lot of really good insight that the author included about like the meditative power of crafting. Like if you love knitting or crochet or really just any kind of crafting, you probably know what I'm talking about, where it's like you can just get lost in it and just go, and it's like everything else in your brain just shuts off. The author describes that so well in this fic.
So if you like what we're doing, please give us a like, a subscribe. We would appreciate it.
Yes, please. Okay, so let's talk about spoilers next. So if you're thinking about reading this one, if you don't want any spoilers, now is your time to turn back. I'm going to give my summary now. As a child, 3PO teaches Anakin how to knit because he feels like it's a pastime he would probably enjoy aside from tinkering with the droids and the pod racers and all that. He kind of just is like, this seems like it would be good for you to learn how to do. So he teaches him. And this quickly becomes Anakin's biggest hobby. And he starts off making a shawl for Shmi, which is pretty like, not great. It has holes in it. It's kind of lumpy, but Shmi loves it. And the more he practices, the better he gets. He starts making really colorful blankets for people and just kind of like all sorts of different stuff. And this hobby stays with him throughout his Jedi training. And he starts making blankets for his friends in the Jedi Order and also just for Padawans and like people that are injured. Just literally like anybody and everybody who needs a blanket pretty much gets one. And you start to get the sense that these blankets have force powers because people that are in the hospital will use them and it really helps them feel a lot better, or younglings will use them and it helps them not get nightmares. In the beginning of Anakin's time with the Jedi Order, he crocheted a blanket for Obi-Wan, and it helped Obi-Wan feel comforted right after losing Qui-Gon. So it seems like there's something a little bit more to these blankets than just the fact that they're nice blankets. And eventually what happens is as he's crocheting, which this is a question I have for you later about how you interpreted this, but it seems like he's able to kind of like imbue force powers into the blanket and make them really strong in the light side. And that's why this is happening. Eventually, this becomes making bracelets for clones, which it seems like it's protecting them when they're in battle and helping them have better outcomes in battle. Because of all of this, Anakin just makes a lot of better life decisions. Like, he still falls in love with Padme, but it's not such like an explosive romance. It's a lot more healthy and just kind of like naturally developing. That's a pretty key example, but he makes a lot of just better decisions in his life. And eventually he gives a blanket to Palpatine, which is so powerful in the light side that it accidentally kills Palpatine. Like, he's using it and dies in his sleep because he was just so like had so much light power going through him that his old body couldn't take it and he dies. So that was pretty awesome. And Anakin is sad when that happens because he doesn't realize at the time that Palpatine is a Sith, but later on he recognizes that that was probably for the best. Eventually, this progression of events eventually leads Anakin to leave the Jedi Order voluntarily on good terms, so that way he can marry Padme. And that's pretty much around the time where we leave off.
That about sums it up. I mean, there was only 3,000 words. So, yeah, you about got all of it.
You know, I will say the author did cover a lot of ground in 3,000 words.
I was going to say the same thing. Like, it actually felt like a full story somehow in 3,000 words.
Yeah. I mean, we saw like his whole life. We basically got to compare like the way that things happen in canon to what could have happened if he had a healthy creative outlet for his emotions. We saw him from a Padawan all the way to a knight. I mean, we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. And it wasn't like they left out, I don't know, like things that made you go, well, what happened? No, it was perfect.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I was missing any info.
Okay, so what characters do we have? We span, because we span isn't like his entire life that we see. We get a lot of characters.
Yeah, so Anakin, of course, our main character, 3PO, who is present at the beginning to teach him how to knit, or I keep saying knit.
He taught both.
I crochet.
I think the story said they did both, and then he ended up keeping with crocheting, which is exactly my progression with crochet and knit also.
Yeah, so it seemed like Anakin was definitely preferred crochet because that's what he does the most often is crocheting blankets for people. Yeah. I think the reason I keep saying knit is just because I knit and I haven't learned how to crochet yet. So, which is on my list to do because everybody says crochet is better. So I got to do that. Anyway, okay. Then we have Padme, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Rex, Cody, and lots of other clones have cameos.
There's a healer. And then there was a made-up, I believe a made-up character for that was Obi-Wan's next Padawan.
Oh, yes. I do remember that name being mentioned, and it is escaping me right now. But yeah, because in this universe, since Anakin didn't become a Sith and all that, Obi-Wan also, and because of course the Jedi Order didn't fall. I guess something I forgot to mention in my summary is that the Jedi Order actually becomes a lot stronger after all this. And so at that time, instead of Obi-Wan having to leave the Order too, he gets to have another Padawan, which would have been, the natural progression of things if everything hadn't gone wrong in canon.
Okay, so did you have any big reactions to this story?
Yeah, I just loved okay, so first of all, I loved the descriptions of all of the blankets that Anakin was making and how they all sounded like so colorful and different and just a lot of times specific to the person that he made them for. So I loved that. As a knitter, I definitely loved imagining what the blankets could have looked like.
Yes.
And I would say that, and also just the fact that because Anakin had a creative outlet, a lot of bad stuff was avoided, which is funny to think about because I don't know if you've ever heard this saying, but like people talking about how like people that are like, you know, have a lot of emotions and really powerful emotions, they kind of need a creative outlet to channel that.
Yeah.
And I feel like this was a really great example of that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. I've heard that too. And like you were saying earlier, they really kind of go into how it's very meditative, and it is. Like just to be able to kind of sit there and have the cadence of how you are using the hook in this case. They even mentioned that he had like a little thing he said in his head. It was like, insert hook, pull out hook, twist, spin. Like it just you get so into it that you can zone out, and it's fantastic. And I love how the author just used that. They obviously are a crafter. And how
Mhm.
they even came up with this idea to begin with, I don't know. I wouldn't have come up with it. To be like, what would have fixed the entirety of Star Wars? Crochet. Crochet would have fixed it.
If Anakin just had something to channel his emotions into other than, you know, dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
Like there was even that one part of when he was accidentally crocheting with the dark side feelings and then he destroys the pieces that he crocheted with the dark side feelings. So
Yeah.
he was still like getting it out of his system in a way that isn't really hurting anybody.
Right, yeah, because they would talk like, mention that was something the author did that I thought was interesting, is that, like, the author was not you weren't reading a story in the way that we normally read a story, you're reading a story, and then the author would almost like, I don't know, fourth wall break or whatever they call it, where it was like, "And they didn't know why this was important until later." I don't and I was like, "That's interesting," because I like that payoff, and I like knowing that I'm like, "Oh, yes, this seems," and then the author's like, "Hey, by the way, that is important, remember that."
Yeah.
And they tied different things into all over. That's not fourth wall breaking, but you know where I was going with that.
I feel
Uh,
like I think that might be the term.
I think that's when, like, the characters know that they're in a story.
Oh, okay. Well, I get what you meant anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the author just kinda gave us hints that we're like, "Hey, this is important," but nobody knew until later. And it was like it was broken up into sections, and at the end of each section, it was just kinda like little parentheses, and so you're looking forward to that payout at the end where it kind of all just comes together, and you're like, "Oh, that makes complete sense." And the author goes and in this acknowledges that this is a completely different galaxy than the other galaxy that we are used to, canon galaxy. Um, they acknowledge like, "Hey, this is in this galaxy, Anakin had this outlet, and in this galaxy, he was a his love for crochet and his friends and this he has such a big heart, he was able to channel that into something, and in this galaxy," and it, like, went on like that, and
Yeah.
it was so, like, I I'm baffled. I have not read a story like that.
It was kind of comparing it to canon without outright saying every little thing.
Yeah. They did compare a little bit where they're like, "And in this galaxy, Anakin's love saves everything, but in the other galaxy, his son's love saves everything."
Mhm.
I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's so cool."
Yeah. Well, and I just loved getting to see him just have all of the emotions that he has in canon, but actually have somewhere healthy to put them.
Yes.
And that ending up being like what you were just referencing about his love saving the galaxy, that ultimately changing like all of the events that came after and making the Jedi Order as a whole a lot stronger because everybody's, held together as a community instead of, Palpatine getting in and being able to do everything that he does.
Doing what, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan all thought the prophecy was supposed to mean, where he was supposed to bring balance to the Force. You're supposed to save the Jedi, not destroy them. He actually did that, which is not creating balance exactly, but like it was what Obi-Wan thought was supposed to be balanced.
I have a question for you, and
Okay.
I'm kind of jumping a little ahead to the question because I feel like I need to get this cleared up, because I kind of went back and forth about if I felt like it was the power of the blankets themselves that was saving the galaxy, or was it the fact that because Anakin was making all these blankets, giving them to people, Palpatine's not there to get in the way of all that, and there's these bonds being strengthened amongst the Jedi. Is that actually what saved the galaxy? Or is it both?
I mean, it's got to be both. But he definitely was a catalyst. Like those blankets enabled that the love and the bonding to happen.
Right. Well, I guess because I started thinking about, even if the blankets weren't magical and like imbued with the light side of the Force, would everything that came after, would it have really changed?
I don't know. I don't think so. Because I mean, Palpatine would not have died.
Oh, that's true, because it was the magic blanket that did kill Palpatine.
Yeah. And they explained how so many of the people didn't die. So many of the clones didn't die because the bracelets, he started to make these like the simple chained bracelets that would help heighten their instincts, and they would like dodge at the right moment. So a lot of the people didn't die. So things would have changed very differently.
And also the bracelets did deactivate the chip in their
You're
brain.
very right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, they didn't.
Okay.
That was just another thing. That was so cool. I was like, why do you mean like a sharp pain and a dull headache?
Yeah. So, okay. It was the literal magic of the blankets that saved everything. But also, it probably doesn't hurt that the Jedi Order was brought together stronger.
They needed it.
Yeah.
They needed it. And I think it's kind of ironic that it was the attachment and love and whatnot that Anakin had that ended up saving the Jedi.
Yeah, which like makes complete sense if you think about it, because Anakin is, as a person that has very strong emotions, he has a lot of love and, a lot of times channels that in very bad places at very bad things. But when he actually is doing things in a healthy way, he has the capability of feeling those really powerful, protective emotions very strongly, and just like handling them in a positive way instead of in a negative way, Did you have any other reactions that you wanted to add?
Nah.
Okay. We covered it. Favorite scene?
I don't have a specific favorite scene. I do have a favorite thing that happened, though. I like at the beginning when they're talking about, they mentioned Shmi at some point, and she was out picking mushrooms, and her shawl gets snagged, and she runs back home to go fix it. And I'm like, that's kind of a weird thing to just randomly put in there. But then the author did the thing where they did the parentheses, and I was like, and nobody knows why this is important yet, but we'll find out. And at the end, we find out that Anakin had a dream where something, I don't know, basically that somehow he was able to kind of foresee that his mom was having a problem, or see across the universe that his mom was having a problem, and like tugged the string to then cause her to go back, because when she went back later to that area, the Tusken Raiders had destroyed where she was at.
Yes.
And so he saved his mother's life by, doing this thing with the string. Somehow.
With the magical shawl.
Yeah, with the magical shawl. So she never gets captured and she never dies because he tugged on the string. I love that she still has it at the end.
Yeah, even though it was the first thing that he made, so you know it was lumpy and lopsided and
Yeah.
weird looking probably. But she doesn't care.
I also liked that part that you mentioned earlier, how like he would he still has the negative feelings because he is a dynamic character that doesn't just feel only love and light. No, he has all those negative feelings, and he does specifically channel them into small, bland colored crochet squares and then burns them. But he doesn't want to tell anybody about that. He's like, oh no, it's just the thing I do. But it he actually found an outlet for those feelings, just like we all need to find an outlet, like screaming into the void.
Yeah. That's his version of screaming into the void in this fic.
Yep.
Which I loved that because, with all those protective emotions and with all that powerful light side energy, there's gonna be a reverse to that, which is the unpleasant emotions are really strong as well, and you got to have somewhere to put them. And I can't think of a better way to deal with that.
All right. What was your favorite scene?
Probably okay. I'll say first of all, I mentioned this earlier, but I loved the descriptions of all the different blankets. I was getting some inspiration. I thought that was fun. And then I also love when Palpatine dies from the power of love.
Power of love.
I loved it. Like the way that the author explains it, what it made me think of was in The Grinch, when the Grinch's heart is like swelling
And it
then
breaks
it's gonna
out of
burst.
yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what happened to Palpatine. Is he's so dark side and so Sith that once he had this blanket that Anakin made him that was imbued with light side energy, it was such a strong feeling that it gave Palpatine that his heart just like swelled like the Grinch and then bursted, and that's how Palpatine died.
Which is completely reasonable in the Star Wars universe because think about Padme dying from heartbreak.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Also, I love the Grinch, so the fact that it made me think of the Grinch is a good thing.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean I liked the way that it was explained because everybody else is having all these positive benefits from the blankets, but because Palpatine is so steeped in the dark side, he's kind of his body and mind can't take all of that light side force.
He died peacefully, which he didn't deserve, but hey, that's nice.
At least he died peacefully before he ruined the whole galaxy.
There you go.
So, yeah, and that is what the author says, is that he died in his sleep surrounded by love. So, yeah, I mean, not a bad way to go. I mean,
No.
Did you have any questions for me?
Yeah. So going back to those little bland squares of negative energy, if there was so much positive energy in the everything else, what do you think those negative squares would do? Like, what if he crocheted them all into, like, connected them all into a giant blanket?
Oh my
Like, would it
gosh.
destroy the world?
It would have become like, I think, like a Sith artifact.
Yeah.
Like, you know how you hear about Sith artifacts that have almost kind of a life of their own or like a mind of their own that affect people in weird ways and make them feel the dark side and maybe make them have visions and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be
horrible.
crazy. A crochet blanket Sith artifact. That would be crazy.
It would be.
But we do have stuff like that in canon. There's all sorts of haunted Sith artifacts. So
The idea that crochet could be angry is hard. I mean, okay. You ever made something and you're like mad about it the entire time because it's not turning out the way you want?
yeah, or I'll mess it up and then have to undo what I mess up and then fix what I messed up, and then I'm
It's much
frustrated.
easier in crochet to do that than knit.
See, there's another reason. There's another reason I gotta try crochet.
Yes. You take out all of the stitches and then the whole thing doesn't come undone. Just the stitches you took out.
Yeah. Yeah, with knitting, it's like when I have to undo something, I'm like, okay, be careful, be careful. Don't accidentally undo too much.
Yep.
Okay, question for you. Similar to my question I asked earlier, but when Anakin was putting the Force powers into the blanket, did you interpret that as at first he was unknowingly putting the light side energy into the blankets, and then later on, once he became more skilled in using the Force, it became like an on purpose thing?
Yeah, I think that's what the author said. It was like
Okay.
when Ahsoka's like, "Oh, these are the magic blankets," he started to put it all together, and that's when he started to make the crochet, like, bracelets for everybody, and
Okay. Yeah, because the original intention, he's like, I'm just crocheting stuff for people. I'm not
yeah.
making, I don't know, protective talismans.
Right.
But then it becomes that later on. Okay, cool. Well, should we talk about what we are reading next month?
Yes, we should. We are going to read another short one because I've been eyeballing this one for a while, and I just wanna know what it is. It's called Face the Music, and it's another 3,000, almost 4,000 word one, and it's just about how Anakin hears the Star Wars soundtrack. And I
This
wanna see how
sounds
this author just
that's
interprets
so
that.
funny you chose that because that sounds very on theme with this one. Like, it
Right.
sounds like those two kind of are probably gonna sort of be in conversation with each other, maybe.
It's not the same author, I don't think, but so where can the all of our people find us?
So we are on social media. So our Instagram is one hell of a fanfic with a period in between every word. We also post our videos of our recording on YouTube, which is called One Hell of a Fanfic. And then we are also on Tumblr at One Hell of a Fanfic. All right. Well, we will see y'all next month. Thanks so much for joining us at One Hell of a Fanfic. On this podcast, we discuss Star Wars fan fiction, but we do not own the rights to Star Wars or any of the written works we cover. We have no affiliation with Lucasfilm or the fanfic authors we credit for their work. For questions, please email us at onehellofafanfic@gmail.com.